The late senator from Utah, Robert Foster Bennett, once said, "Your life is the sum result of all the choices you make, both consciously and unconsciously. If you can control the process of choosing, you can take control of all aspects of your life. You can find the freedom that comes from being in charge of yourself." For the most part, that really is true. With the exception of the unexpected accident or illness, nearly everything we call life is the result of the choices we make along the way. And that includes the results that are both the result of our good and our bad choices. I've told you before of the call I received to visit a member of one of my congregations in the intensive care unit of a hospital. I arrived, and he was hooked up to every imaginable kind of machine. He was morbidly obese, smoked like a chimney, drank more than anyone should, took no exercise, and ate the most unhealthy diet you can imagine. He had endured strokes, heart attacks, ulcerated skin, breathing issues, and a list of maladies I would rather forget. But in the midst of all those wires and tubes that were monitoring him and in some cases keeping him alive, he looked at me and said, "Why is this happening to me?" It would not have been in keeping with established pastoral practice to point out the idiocy of the question. All I could do was to comfort him and hold out the hope that healing would come. Choices and consequences. We know that when we choose wisely, things will go well. When we choose poorly, things head south pretty quickly. And there are those times when the choices before us are clear. The right choice is staring us in the eye, and we know exactly what we should do. Sometimes we are smart enough to make that obvious choice. Sometimes we are not so smart. The story of ancient Israel and their leader Joshua that we heard again this morning is about making choices. The people are at Shechem. Nothing unusual there. They've been to Shechem before. They are participating in a covenant ceremony. Nothing unusual there. They had participated in covenant ceremonies before. They were listening to Joshua. Again, nothing unusual there. Joshua had been their leader since the death of Moses. But Joshua's time as their leader was coming to an end. They have conquered Canaan, and they are about to begin making it their own. The promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were being fulfilled. On the threshold of this momentous event, Joshua speaks to the people about choices. He begins by reminding them of their history. Joshua brings before the people their ancestors. He speaks of when they were no people and how God called Abraham and Sarah and made of them a great and populous nation. He subtly reminds the people of all that God had done for them, freeing them from Egypt, defeating their adversaries, opening the land of promise to them. And then for Joshua, it all comes down to this. Now therefore, revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are now standing. There is a choice to be made. Indecision is not an option. Straddling the fence is no longer viable. A choice must be made. The God who has led them to this moment in their history, or the gods that have already been defeated and discredited. The people cry out, "We will serve the Lord." "Right," says Joshua. "You'll be following other gods before breakfast tomorrow." "Oh, no," the people cry out, "we will serve the Lord." "You can't do it," Joshua says. "We will," they say. "Your own words will condemn you," Joshua says. "God will turn against you if you desert God for other gods." "So be it," says the people. "The Lord our God we will serve, and him we will obey." So Joshua, acting on behalf of God, makes a covenant between God and the people. Choices and consequences. Ask any of our confirmation class members about how well our ancestors kept their promises to God. Ask them how it went for them when they called on God to have a king. Ask them what happened when the people abandoned God's way. They're studying all that stuff right now. Choices, even bad choices, have consequences. One of the challenges of making choices is doing the continual work that goes along with the choice. Choices often require extraordinary effort to have the fullness of the choice become reality. If you choose to play a musical instrument or learn to sing, you can't simply make the choice and then wait for the invitations from Carnegie Hall to come pouring in. The choice requires work, discipline, practice, sacrifice. Even if you choose a musical path just for the pure joy of it, you still need to do the work that is required to be able to make music. It just doesn't happen. And that goes for lots of other endeavors. You make a choice to be a teacher, and there is education and practice and so much more that goes into being a teacher. You decide to be an electrician. There's a lot to learn, lots of hands-on practice and lots of study, because if you get it wrong, real harm can be done. Doesn't matter what choice we make. Lawyers, truck drivers, chefs, business people, engineers, photographers, writers, take your pick. It all takes ongoing and continual work. And that is exactly the same with being a disciple of Jesus Christ. When we, as the kids sang, when we decide to follow Jesus, it's not a one and done. Being a disciple of Jesus Christ, choosing whom we will serve, requires ongoing practice and discipline. It calls on us to deepen our trust in God every day. It challenges us to live in community with other believers and work together to do God's work in the world. It inspires us to live in new ways, think new thoughts, and begin seeing things from new perspectives. And today, in a very tangible way, the choice to be a disciple of Jesus Christ challenges us to look at our wealth and to consider how it should be used. Choosing to serve God and follow in the way of Jesus isn't without a cost. Read the gospel stories of when Jesus interacted with people who wanted to follow him and yet keep on doing what they were already doing. They, just like us, wanted to keep one foot in the life we have and one foot in the life of being a disciple. We'll give God an hour or so on Sunday, and some of what we can spare we'll do just enough to make it feel like we're on the path. We like to straddle and keep shifting back and forth between this world and God's world. When I was in England a month ago, I was at Durham Cathedral observing the matriculation services for the University of Durham. Followed young new students in their black academic robes up the old cobblestone streets to the cathedral. And there they pledged allegiance to the university and all the rest that they do at that time. But I wasn't paying a lot of attention until I heard an English academic say, "Look at a dollar bill." Now that's odd, I thought. Why would anyone here have a dollar bill? But he continued. He said, "Look at a dollar bill and look at what it says. In God we trust." And then he continued. If you ask any American, which do they trust more, God or the dollar? Guess what the honest answer will be? It was a slap in the face. But this English professor had me dead to rights. Yes, we say we trust in God. We've even printed it on our money since 1956. And as people of faith, we probably mean it more than the average citizen. But do we? Do we trust in God? Do we trust in God more than in other gods? And while we worship and serve God, are there still other gods we worship and serve? And we're right back at Shechem. Choose this day whom you will serve. The choice to be a disciple, to follow in God's way, is anything but easy. Discipleship calls us to make choices all along the way, and very often to face choices upon choices each and every day. And each of those choices have consequences. The good news is that we are not alone. In the work of discipleship, we are not alone. We have been given an example, a model of how to live the life God intends for us. When we honestly look at Jesus Christ, we see just how human beings are capable of living. We can be people of peace, justice, righteousness, compassion, and hope. We can care for the neighbor, feed the hungry, heal the sick, and comfort the afflicted. When we are faced with choices, the example of Jesus Christ can point us in the right direction, and we can make the right choice. And when we feel like we just can't keep going, the Holy Spirit is there to empower us to live as disciples. The Spirit guides us when the choices are hard, strengthens us to make the right choice, and comforts us when the choice to be a disciple seems foolish and irrational. The Spirit is there to shine light on the path we are to walk and to encourage us when the path is difficult. The late Senator Bennett was right. Your life is the sum of all the choices you make, both consciously and unconsciously. Motivational speaker Zig Ziglar takes it one step further. Ziglar says, your life is the result of the choices you make. If you don't like your life, start making better choices. Now, therefore, revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, would you please choose this day whom you will serve? Whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose defeated land you are now living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Choose. But choose wisely. Choices have consequences. Some for now, and some forevermore.